Well, I always have said that I get to do the most fun part of the evening. Because if you're like I am, I love to hear about something that motivates me. I want to know what I can do about it. I don't want to just sit there and listen. So I'm an action person, and this is an opportunity now for us to take action. I thought I would take just a few minutes to explain a piece of our model that might help you understand a little more why we know exactly how many water tanks we need to raise money for. First of all, let me give you the good news that on the 17th of October, we were able to wire money over to buy 44 tanks. Now understand that that's a match. So those 44 mean that 44 were already purchased in Kenya by the women. So that's 88 families that have water just recently. And it's rainy season now, so it's very, very important for us to time this, to be responsive to this time when rain is falling. There's 2 rainy seasons, and this is one of them, and so our urgency tonight is to be ready to match the next set of tanks. Now, the women's groups in Kenya, and I want to just take a few minutes to explain this because I think this will help us as we understand why we do the things we do. When they're interested in forming a group, they go through a long process of preparation. They don't just decide, oh, willy-nilly, we're going to be a women's enterprises group. They gather together, anywhere from 20 to 40. We try to keep it more at 25 and 30. And then they go through a long process of training. And Gracie and her staff work with them. They prepare these women to learn how to write a proposal. Many of these women don't know how to read. And yet they learn to put their ideas and their dreams together into a document. And it goes through several iterations. It finally comes to us, and we approve it. And so this may take a year or 2 before their proposal is ready, because it depends on what level they start at. And that's why it's such an empowering process, because these women that never really thought of themselves as very capable, all of a sudden are writing a proposal to an international group. So that's a huge, huge, huge contribution that this process makes to their lives. But once they write this, they're not just waiting for us. While they're learning how to write the proposal and going through their problem statement and their dreams and how they're going to raise the money, and they have to come up with a plan, they have to come up with a timetable of how long they think it's going to take them to raise their part of the money, they're saving money. So the time their proposal comes to us and we receive it and we approve it, they may already have 6 tanks in that group. And so when we approve, we're already behind in our match. Do you understand that? So when a new group comes to us, we're not starting at 0. We're already starting with a need to match what they've already done. And so in November, there's 3 clusters. And since there's so many groups, they're organized into geographic clusters. And the way they do it is once a year, they come together with their tanks, their little banks, something like this, with their money, and they open it once a year, and they see how much they save. And they have a target, so it's not a surprise. They know what they're supposed to have saved in this can. So when they do that, then we need to be ready. So that's really our challenge. And so these groups, we have 3 clusters coming together before November 15th. And we know that their target between these 3 groups is 37 tanks. So we need to be ready to match 37 tanks. Well, we just sent the money for 44 tanks. We don't have the money for 37 tanks right now. And so that's what we're hoping tonight as a group. We will listen and remember the names that we've heard about tonight. And I'll tell you about one name that I remember. This last June when I was there, I made the mistake of being a little too curious. We had gone to a women's group called Tulamani, and they're one of the ones who will be opening their banks in November. And they had a water table, they had kind of a sandy lot that during the rainy season would fill with water. And as the season went by, it would dry up and the water would go deeper and deeper and kind of sink down into the sandy area. And they would start digging. Do you guys remember this? They start digging and digging and digging, trying to get down to the water table. Well, by the time we were there, the hole was about 30 feet deep. So I made the mistake of being a little too curious and looking over and saying, wow, that's deep. And one of the women said, oh, let me take you down. Well, those of you who know me, I am claustrophobic. But I could not resist the excitement and her excitement to share this with me. So we went down and we actually shimmied down this hand-dug hole, 30 feet, down into the ground. And at that level, we got down on our feet, on our haunches there, squatting, and using a gourd, waited for water to slowly seep into this little spring, from the spring. And that is how they fill their jerry cans. That process can take up to an hour, waiting for the water just to seep through. And then when they fill this jerry can, which weighs by this time about 40 pounds, they have to crane it back up to the top and then crawl out. So I did that process with her. I will never, ever, ever forget it. Because as you've heard tonight, you can hear about water problems, but when you see it at that level, it takes on a whole different meaning. So it's time for us to act. It's time for us to respond. It's time for us to partner with these amazing women. So at your table, there are cards. And what we try to do, each tank cost $1,200. That's a 10,000-liter tank. In a good period of rain, it can fill up completely in 5 to 6 days of hard rain. That water, as it rains during the rainy season, it can last a family until the next rainy season. Of course, they're very careful with their water. They're not like us Seattleites that we turn the water on and complain about the rain all day. Water is so precious to them. So if they're very careful with it, this water can last them until the next rainy season. So each tank then provides water for one family. We're thinking of about a family of 6 to 7 people. So tonight we would love to be able to raise 37 tanks. We would be so excited when on November 15th, when these other clusters open their banks and they count their money, for us to be able to say, we have the money, we can send it immediately. That means you can have a water tank in the next week, just the time it takes for us to wire the money and the water tank company to get the water tanks. So it's really an exciting process. Being a small organization, really grassroots, the excitement of that is it's an immediate action. We wire the money, they get the water tanks very quickly. So we're going to give you all time to look at these cards and fill them out. We also want to tell you that if you don't have one of these, we call these our Harambee banks, and many of you are smiling. We have these at our homes, and there's some for you to take home if you don't have one. And this is just one way that we partner with the women that we are our friends. This is really symbolic, that as they're saving their money and they're saving it sacrificially, we're putting our spare change. But it is a way of our connecting with them and their effort. So I really encourage everybody to have one. You can, when they're full, you can bring them back to our book forums, or you can bring them back next year at the next Harambee.